It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. No truth to the rumor that Clemson just scored another touchdown on Louisville. My goodness. A Clemson football team in its last 4 games averaging, get this now, 60 points per game over those 4 games.
It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy this past weekend, at least.
Well, true. Nobody shed a tear for Bobby P.
Dude, how many people over the last week were just behind the scenes we talked to just trashing Bobby Petrino? Nobody likes that guy.
His reputation precedes him. Meantime, the Gamecocks, we sat here last week saying, can't win a shootout, don't get in a track meet, can't win it.
Whoops.
They did.
I was wrong.
They did, yeah. I mean, that was very, very impressive. Got the lead, fell behind, fought their way back, played great defense in the fourth quarter. What did they do in the fourth quarter?
So, a couple of things. Number one, Will Muschamp went in, and I asked this question specifically. He wanted to play ball control. He wanted to do what we all had basically said, run the football going in. But once it was evident that both teams weren't stopping either, he told Brian McClendon, look, just go. Just score. We don't care. If they can't stop us, we're not going to stop ourselves, basically. And the one thing that they did in the fourth quarter is they switched from their zone coverage to a lot more man, and that allowed for a lot more advantageous matchups. The one thing that they did see in the game that they didn't see on film was that A.J. Brown, and they had the bye week, so they had a chance to kind of reform some things. They moved their best remaining receiver out after DK Metcalf was out. A.J. Brown outside. He hadn't been outside all year, according to Muschamp on film. So that was an adjustment. They were afraid to play man because of some of the matchups that they had outside, and also, quite frankly, they weren't going to trust their depleted safety unit to try and played double high safety with man coverage on the outside because of the fact that they were just so depleted there. But they played better. They got 4 consecutive stops down the stretch. And I tell you what, that's kind of one of those games where you apologize for nothing. You come out of it with a win on the road. And right now, if you look at this game this week with Florida, you got a winnable game in the Swamp, especially after the way they looked against Mizzou.
Maybe not. Maybe they made them mad and they'll pay attention this time. But, it almost was like a reverse pop quiz because you could almost see in the body language of Mississippi's quarterback that when they went to the man, he was hesitating.
Right.
Because they had done their homework on that zone, and I could swear he was knowing where he was going with the ball before the snap. They snap it, he'd look, oh, yeah, there it is.
Everything underneath.
And they just picked him apart.
Which is weird
underneath.
because that zone buster stuff, it was exactly the same thing that they were getting busted on against Tennessee, and I don't know why they were so hesitant to play man. I mean, maybe it was just because they had all those guys getting hurt. I mean, they were walking wounded. They lost another 2 guys in the secondary to season-ending injuries, and Javon Charleston and Jamias Williams. So that obviously was something that they were reticent to at least do. But when South Carolina plays man, they can be very, very physical with their outside. And I think that you really have kind of stopped down on something there with South Carolina. And I know that offense was playing a defense that was largely absent, but you got some very encouraging signs from Jake Bentley. And since that first quarter against Texas A&M, he's played some of the best football he's had all year.
Directly related to the running game. Getting a running game going has taken the pressure off of him. It's given him the opportunity to share the load, not feel like the game's on his back. And, boy, he threw some nice balls. And Brian Edwards, of course, made one of the best catches of the weekend. Shi Smith had a nice catch, had some drops, but he had a nice catch as well. Mon Denson, my goodness, where did he come from? And the offensive line did a nice job. So South Carolina finally showed life on offense that they can score more than 25 points and win a football game. Going back to Clemson, not much to say. I mean, what can you say? They were just fantastic. Clemson is, every bit as good as Alabama. I don't care. People will say just because Alabama's in the SEC and they're Saban and they're Alabama and all that kind of stuff, they are every bit as good. I don't think Notre Dame or Michigan or whoever that fourth team is, if they come out of the Big Ten, would stand a chance against either of those teams because you're talking about athletes galore with speed at Alabama and Clemson. For example, you don't hear a lot about him, but Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver for Alabama.
Very good.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, the guy can't be caught, and he catches everything. Those guys, the Big Ten teams, what are they known for? They're known for their size and their bulk. They're not especially fast in a lot of areas. You saw how South Carolina handled Michigan in the last quarter and a half last year in the bowl game. Now, maybe Michigan is better with a better quarterback. But I think we're definitely looking at an Alabama-Clemson national championship game out in San Francisco come January.
The only thing I would stop down on you with Alabama or with Clemson being better than Alabama from that perspective.
I didn't say better. I said as good.
Everybody is good.
Yeah.
The only thing is that Alabama has the best win between the two of them now with that win at LSU. I mean, you take that for what it's worth. And I know the rankings really don't mean much after a team loses, but that was a hostile environment at Tiger Stadium. You go on the road in the SEC. LSU had been playing better, and you basically have a lot of these recruiting battles that take place between these two teams, and they're all kind of fighting for the same territory, fighting for the same players, a lot of animosity between the two. And not only did Alabama win, they dominated, and even in a day where it looked like Tua Tagovailoa was a little bit banged up with an injury there. He took a shot to the midsection, the lower midsection, which did not look good. But from the standpoint of where Alabama is, they've got the best win between the two of them. But Clemson is doing it in a way that we have not seen a team go through its conference like they have so far this season.
I haven't seen Death Valley at LSU as quiet since Jared DiNardo was coaching there.
Jeez.
I mean, I have not seen that place.
You remember that game
quiet.
against Troy last year? It was pretty quiet then.
Here's the one thing that's ominous about what's going on in college football, and I thought Chris Doering put it best on the SEC network. He said, looking at Alabama beat the number 3 team in LSU and Clemson hanging 77 on Louisville, this is like looking at the women's college basketball. There's Connecticut and whoever, and everybody else below them.
Yeah, they're playing for the scraps.
I forgot who said this on social media this week, but someone made the analogy that Clemson looks like the Golden State Warriors on grass with their offense.
Oh,
and it's basically the best way I could put it.
And I'll be honest with you, Chase Bryce came in and threw 3 touchdown passes. That kid is a very capable backup if anything were to happen, as he proved in the Syracuse game. So
I told you they could have won the ACC with that kid. Nobody believes me.
So 2 big wins there. Let's talk about it. 800-956-7266. Elsewhere around the state over the weekend, Coastal fell to Appalachian State, so they're still a win away from bowl eligibility. Furman got a nice win over Chattanooga. The Citadel, with 5 suspended players, including their quarterback, rallies to beat Western Carolina. Wofford, bad loss for the Terriers at Sanford. Charleston Southern lost at Monmouth. PC lost at Gardner-Webb. Newberry beat Catawba, got a chance for a winning season with a win at Mars Hill this week. And Benedict finishes its year with a win at Kentucky State. North Greenville lost at Florida Tech. And Limestone finished a perfectly bad season with a loss to Wingate. So they go winless. They'll be looking for their new coach, and we'll see what happens there with the Saints. 800-956-7266 is our number. Our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. And on Twitter, we are at SportsTalkSC. Tonight being Monday night, when we come back from the bottom of the hour break, prepare. We need a contestant for our Terminex Best or Pest Fan of the Week. We are ready with our questions. You need to be ready with your answers. There'll be 2 questions related to the Clemson win over Louisville and 1 related to USC's win at Ole Miss.
And we have a little basketball to talk about tonight for the first time. Both South Carolina and Clemson will open up their seasons tomorrow, and Wofford will do the same with that highly anticipated rematch against the Tar Heels of North Carolina.
Yeah, we heard from the head coaches today. USC's got injury issues.
They do. Alonzo Frank and TJ Moss both will not play tomorrow. Also, Jermaine Couisnard still developing or still having a situation with academics. We presume he will not play tomorrow. Still unknown at this point with him. And Clemson's got a little injury bug issue as well. Malik Williams been dealing with a severe concussion. He hasn't practiced for a couple of weeks. Elijah Thomas was on the practice floor today for the first time in about 2 weeks with a bone bruise and an ankle injury. He is a game-time decision for tomorrow's game for the Tigers against the Citadel.
Yeah, they play the Citadel and get ready for the threes to rain down in Little John from the Bulldogs.
Run and gun.
All right, we'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We've already heard from a couple of you on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Love to hear from you on the phones, 800-956-7266. Again, we'll be giving away some more tickets to the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources Sportsman's Classic in the spring as part of our Terminix Best or Pest fan contest coming up at just about 6:30. So be listening for that. Again, if you want to chat about the Gamecocks win over Ole Miss and Clemson's victory over Louisville, 800-956-7266. Again, South Carolina facing Florida, noon kick, ESPN. Clemson getting ready for an 8 p.m. kick at Boston College under the lights in Chestnut Hill. There'll be college game day in the offing as well. We also found out the kick times for next week, at least one of them for South Carolina.
Yep, the Gamecocks and UT Chattanooga. Under the lights, Gamecock fans, you get another night game, 7:30, USC and UTC in Columbia.
You know what that was? You know, I'm sure that was, it said, you know what, we're not going to put your game on the SEC network. It's going to be on the alternate. It's basically dealer's choice of where you want the game.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically said, we'd like the night game.
Sure. And the ACC for the same weekend for the Clemson game, 6-day hold on Duke at Clemson.
Kind of saw that coming.
A couple of other things to mention. The national championship odds from Bovada, the new odds are out. Alabama now 5-13.
That doesn't seem right.
Clemson is 5-1. Notre Dame is 11-2. Michigan is 13-2. Georgia and Ohio State 20-1 each. Oklahoma 22-1. Boy, Georgia very, very impressive at Kentucky. Maybe Kentucky's a fraud. I don't know. I thought they were pretty good, but what a running game Georgia unleashed against. They didn't throw the ball very much. They just ran it down Kentucky's throat, and they stuffed Kentucky's running game.
We've seen this with Kentucky every year. They'll play a statement game late in the season, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Florida, whoever might come into their stadium, and they just always kind of lay an egg, kind of very similar to what South Carolina has done over the last couple of years. It's just they can't play when the pressure's strongest and most on them.
Well, the thing about Kentucky is, and I think Nick Saban does it better than anybody else in the postseason. When Alabama just had those pedestrian quarterbacks, what did Nick Saban do? He came out throwing because everybody believes, well, Alabama's going to try to run it down your throat. Kentucky, that's their whole game, is to run it down your throat. And I thought they would mix it up a little bit against Georgia and try to throw on first down. They continue to just run into that line and just get stuffed.
But that quarterback is not even pedestrian at Kentucky.
Talking about running it down the throat, you see how many passes Georgia Tech attempted Saturday? Double.
Oh,
what they did the other game. 2. They threw 2 passes against North Carolina. They rushed for, I could look it up again, around 400 and something yards. I mean, they won. That's Paul Johnson, man.
Is he saving his job there?
Georgia, you bet. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they apparently have very minimal standards athletically at Georgia Tech, not academically.
Hey, don't say that about my man Josh Pastner. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I like Josh Pastner. But anyway, they just ran it up and down on North Carolina, as anybody can do. They threw 2 passes in the ballgame.
That's a guy. I mean, if there's anybody who's looking for a job next year, I think it's that guy.
I don't know. If I'm North Carolina, you got to consider the stuff that they've gone through, the probations, the loss of scholarships, all this sort of stuff. I got to give Larry Fedora some time and see if he can rebuild this thing. I think he's a good football coach. I think he's a very good offensive mind.
He's 7.
Yeah, I mean, they stink this year. There's no question about it, and they were bad last year.
Who was their one ACC win?
Don't know.
Wasn't it Pitt?
Yes.
Was it Pitt?
Yes,
and now Pitt's in position to win.
They won 38-35 over
There's
Pitt.
a Clemson-Pittsburgh ACC championship game excite anybody?
No.
Does Clemson against anybody in the ACC championship game exciting?
All right, 800-956-7266. Our lines are open. You can get through and join us. Your thoughts on, really, I would think Gamecock fans would be chomping at the bit to get to us tonight to brag about their win at Ole Miss. That is a good SEC road win for the Gamecocks. That gives them, 2 SEC road wins?
Mm-hmm.
They're in a position now at 5-3 and 4-3 in the league. if they can beat Florida, and this now looks like a winnable opportunity because Florida's got real quarterback issues right now. Dan Mullen said today that the two quarterbacks both graded out as losers or graded out poorly. He didn't say losers, I am. But they were within 1 point of one another.
Which seems preposterous.
So neither one really stood out over the other, Trask or Franks. But he said he's not sure yet. They're going to compete this week. He's not sure which one he will start against the Gamecocks on Saturday. But people are already in year one at Florida. The columnists and all the armchair quarterbacks are really starting to come down on Mullen and his handling of the quarterback situation. They want Trask. They're tired of Felipe Franks. They want Trask to be the guy starting Saturday against South Carolina.
Dude, how long have I been trying to tell you that Florida's quarterbacks are trash? I mean, trash.
Could be trash.
I'm just saying.
Well, it's except for the one that's playing now for West Virginia.
That's true. Well,
how about the pass he threw?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking
about the guts of Dana, too.
Yeah, but the pass, I mean, he threw that thing like totally off balance and his arm strength just carried. Oh, what a throw. A couple of other things. The SEC special teamer of the week is
Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, that was some return. He had two good returns.
He had two returns. One of them set up very, very good field position that set up a scoring drive as well. And that kickoff return was actually kind of busted. I almost feel like the up man catching it basically threw off the lanes of the pursuit guys, and that was what allowed Deebo to kind of get that little extra seam. And I tell you what, when you get that guy in the open field, there's very, very few people who can actually catch up.
He doesn't look that fast.
He glides.
But he is just fast.
He glides.
The thing they've got to do now is figure out how to get him involved in the down-the-field passing game because his average per catch is not where it should be for a guy of that talent.
You line him up 10 yards offside. That's how. I'm kidding.
Well, you got to do something.
But
you got to get him in there and let him make some big games and make some big plays on the offensive side.
But I will say this: it's funny how, and no knock against Ole Miss's defense, but it's funny how Jake Bentley looks comfortable when his wide receivers make plays and don't drop the football. I mean, that catch by Edwards
goes hand in hand with completing passes. I mean, you got to catch it.
Because I thought the best throw he made was the Van.
Yeah,
because he put it in the only place it could have been in the back of that end zone. And if those receivers had not made plays early in the game, I'm not certain he throws that. I think he throws it in the stands.
The PR people at the CBS say the Alabama-LSU game was the highest rated college football game on any network this season. An average household meter market rating / share. The rating was 6.7. The share was 13, up 81% from last year.
I actually listened to that whole game on the radio driving through Alabama.
Eli?
Yeah, on the radio in Alabama, driving back. And found like 5 different Birmingham or Anniston, Alabama affiliate too, all over the place.
You didn't have XM?
I don't have XM in my car.
Oh. Sam Hartman, who played last year at Oceanside Collegiate, was a Shrine Bowler for South Carolina, having a tremendous year as the starting quarterback as a freshman at Wake Forest, is out for the season. He was hurt in their loss to Syracuse. He had started all 9 games, passing for right at 2,000 yards and 16 touchdowns. His future is bright in that offense at Wake Forest. Kansas, of course, fired their coach,
David Beatty.
Seeing some names already starting to crop up, including one Les Miles.
See, they had the same problem that Nebraska did when they fired Solich and when they fired Osborne. When they fired Mark Mangino left that job because of issues involving, discipline and also some alleged maltreatment of players and things of that nature. But he was the most successful football coach that university had ever seen. I almost feel like a reconciliation with him wouldn't be out of the question.
What's he doing now?
Nothing.
He's still like 800 pounds?
He is. He was at Iowa State.
He's a big guy. He's big.
He was at Iowa State under Paul Rhodes, but I do not think he's doing anything right now.
I really thought, didn't Turner Gill go there?
He did. He was bad.
Yeah, I really thought he would do well.
Didn't he go from
Liberty?
Buffalo.
He was at Liberty.
He was.
After that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought he was going to do a good job there.
He was very bad.
That must just be a very difficult football job.
They're still paying Charlie Weiss, too.
Huh. All right, 800-956-7266. Lines are open. First one in will be our contestant in the Terminex Pest or best fan of the week here on Sports Talk.
With DNR tickets also.
It's time for the Terminex Best Fan or Pest Fan of the Week. For over 70 years, Terminex has helped Carolina and Clemson fans protect what they love about living in the South, from football Saturdays to Sunday brunch.
Be the first to give us a phone call at 800-956-7266. 3 questions answered correctly will get you into the 2019 South Carolina Department of Natural Resources Sportsman's Classic. Chance for you to see some of the best that South Carolina has to offer in that event next season. These events and questions pertain to the weekend football between Clemson and Louisville and South Carolina and Ole Miss.
Sportsman's Classic, I got to tell you, if you've never been, you got to go if you are an outdoorsman. It is fantastic. The thing is, they have things on display like boats and off-road vehicles and things for hunting, fishing, and you can just browse through there without the pressure of a salesman and take your time and evaluate. And it is a great, great event. So these tickets are well worth competing. We do have a caller, a contestant who wants to take us on to see if he can knock these 3 questions out of the park. It is Dan in North Augusta. Is that correct? Dan, how are you?
What's yourself?
We're great, Dan. We're great. Are you an outdoorsman type person?
Yes, sir.
Oh, this is perfect for you then. You've been to the Sportsman's Classic before?
Yeah, I've been once.
Oh, good. Well, we hope we can send you again in the spring. You ready to rock and roll?
Yes, sir.
All right. So got 3 questions for you here. 2 related to Clemson's game, 1 related to South Carolina's game. You a Tiger or a Gamecock?
I'm a Tiger.
All right.
Right along.
This might be easy for you. We shall see. Here we go. Question number 1. There were a number of school milestones reached by Clemson in Saturday's win over Louisville, including one set prior to kickoff. What was that, Dan?
Earliest they've ever kicked off. I have no idea.
Has something to do with something that they do every time.
That big mound of dirt
every time
on
they
one
kick
side
it
of the
off.
stadium. Think of that big mound of dirt with grass on it on one side of the stadium.
Trying to help you.
That's what I thought.
Go ahead, Dan.
Most times it run down the hill.
Yeah. Think of the distance from North Augusta to Clemson times roughly 2 in miles.
It's a round number.
All right, so 200?
Times 2 would be what?
400.
Hey! 400th trip down the hill. Very good. All right, here's question number 2. The 77 points scored by Clemson, that's just the 4th most in school history.
Oh.
What's the most Clemson has scored in a game? Dan?
I'm going to go with 89. Wait, sorry.
89. No,
87.
it's a little low.
84.
A little low. Lower. You're getting colder. Getting colder.
96.
No, all right, here's your hint. The highway that runs between Easley and Clemson -1 would be what?
122.
Bingo.
When was this?
122.
Yeah, it's Guilford in 1901.
Oh, I was about to say before
Guilford.
face mask.
Yeah. That's not 8-man football. That's real football.
It was Guilford playing with handcuffs.
All right. I got real doubts on this one since you really couldn't nail the Clemson questions. This is a Gamecock question. But here we go. USC made program history with its 48-44 win at Ole Miss. What was that history, Dan?
They actually won a game.
Well, you're close. Won a game, win what? Actually won a game.
Went down by more than 20 points.
They weren't down by more than 20. Think of
Defense.
Think of how much offense Ole Miss had. How many yards did Ole Miss have? Think about that.
I have no idea, man.
What do we do here?
I don't know if we can give it to them. We got more waiting.
Yeah. Trying to help you out the best we can. All right, thanks. We're going to hit another caller, see if we can nail this. Thank you. Good try, though, Dan. RJ in Lexington. RJ, are you an outdoorsman type of person?
I am, Corn, and I don't think I needed any hints that you gave.
Well, let's see what you got. Are you a Tiger or a Gamecock?
I am a Tiger fan.
Tiger fan. Well, let's just start from the beginning anyway, since you probably know this. Number of milestones by Clemson in the win over Louisville, including one set prior to kickoff. What was that?
That was the 400th time running down the hill.
Okay.
How many times have you seen them run down the hill?
Not 400, Corn, but many times.
All right, number 2, 77 points scored by Clemson, 4th most in school history. The most would be what?
I think it was 102.
A little shy. You want the same hint I gave the other guy?
Nope. 103.
No. The highway between
101.
Easley and Clemson -1. What would that be?
Oh God, you're talking to a Lexington County boy.
Everybody knows the road between Easley and Clemson.
All
right. When you start learning to count, -1. I mean, come on.
When you start learning to count 0,
No.
you start learning to count -1.
No. Count
when you start to count numbers is the route, and then -1.
1,
2,
3,
minus
1, 2, 3.
-1 would be
122.
yeah.
Okay. Jeez.
Thank you.
All right, here's the last one. USC made program history with its win over Ole Miss. No, it was not just their first win. It was what?
Their first win when what occurred?
It was when the opponent had over 600 yards of offense against them.
Yes.
I think we have a winner.
We have a wiener. Nicely done. Need a little help there on the math side, but that was good.
RJ, please hold. We will get our producer Brian in touch with you so you could get our tickets. And thanks for playing our Terminix Best or Pest Fan competition.
For over 70 years, Terminex has helped Carolina and Clemson fans protect what they love about living in the South, from football Saturdays to Sunday brunch.
And that is how you do the Terminex Best or Pest Fan competition.
I feel like we should go on that television show where you have two people sitting across from each other and one's giving hits. Yeah.
Pyramid.
You give a hint.
Pyramid.
And you can't say exactly what it is on the other side. Nicely done. And thanks to Dan, good try.
He was a pest.
Just could not get to the.
I didn't feel that we could, in good conscience, give him that because we had to help him out on all three.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind giving hints. We give you a clear hint. If you can't get it, we've got to move on to other people because they deserve.
If we have others,
a hint or a roadmap.
Oh, we got
which
plenty.
one?
All right, thank you for that. 800-956-7266 is the phone number here on Sports Talk. And we'll get to calls here in a little bit. Recruiting is coming up. USC women picked up a big-time commitment with the signing day a week from Wednesday. Our poll question, make sure you check this out on our website. It is the season to vote. You voted today, huh?
I did.
Did you go up to New York?
No, I'm registered to vote here in the great state of South Carolina.
I mean, like you pay taxes here and everything?
I pay taxes. I have my car tag is here and everything.
You didn't vote for the governor of New York or anything like that?
No, I voted in the South Carolina gubernatorial race and the House race of this district.
First time, right?
First time voting in South Carolina, yes.
Right.
I voted in Texas about 4 years ago or 2 years ago and voted in Missouri before that.
You've also voted in Virginia?
Yes.
And New York?
I had not voted in New York.
Okay.
That was before my eligible voting age.
Our poll question is simply this. And we've got 335 registered votes. We've actually got twice that because Mr. Stupid here deleted it accidentally.
Again?
I did the same mistake, yeah. Had over 300-something votes, and I deleted the question. Anyway, question is, who wins Saturday in the Swamp? USC's getting 61. Gamecock fans are getting kind of full themselves.
Bullish.
61% of the votes are in favor of USC winning in the Swamp.
It's because they saw the way Florida looked in the Swamp against Missouri.
Well, Florida's defense outside of this past Saturday has been pretty stout, but I think South Carolina's up to the task of moving the football.
I said, what do they don't have? They don't have a quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't win.
Back in a moment.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
One thing I do want to point out and give kudos to South Carolina fans, they traveled en masse to Ole Miss. I think that we, at least, and I know that we're not the only ones who probably said this, but I think I was very, very clear and vocal that if there was one road trip that you wanted to make this year, if you were a Gamecock fan, it was this one. And not only did we see plenty in the Grove, saw some people who had some tent dedicated to the Gamecocks, and a lot of them walking around before the game and around town, and even around Tupelo where we stayed, which is also where the team stayed. But saw a lot of Gamecock presence in the stands. They were loud, they were vocal, and on the field in the fourth quarter, you could hear them. I mean, they made it sound like it was almost a home game when it came to South Carolina's fan base. So they always travel well when it comes to most of the SEC venues, and they certainly was no exception.
They're just like Clemson fans. When the Gamecocks are winning big, they'll take as many tickets as they can get their hands on, whether it's a regular season game or a bowl game. If it's going well, they're gonna be there in big numbers. They always have been. That's been one of the things that South Carolina has always been able to sell to recruits and all that, is their rabid fan base, despite the history of the program, which is slightly over 500.
It also shows you where history and scarcity works. They know they won't be back. They won't play Ole Miss, and they probably will be in Williams-Brice Stadium in 7 years. So they don't get to go to the Grove too often. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Note on USC women's soccer, had another really good year, and they are going to the NCAA tournament for the 6th straight year. The Gamecocks, a number 3 seed, and they'll host UNC Greensboro in the opening round this weekend. The date and time to be set later on tonight. Let's go to Clark in Greenwood. Next call here on Sports Talk. Howdy, Clark. How are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
First of all, give a big shout-out to all the Lakeland football teams that's going to the playoffs. And I think we got Greenwood 96. I think Emerald might make it, and Abbeville's going for their – I think Abbeville's going for their fourth championship in 7 years. So,
sounds about right.
Abbeville. But anyway, I want to go to Clemson real quick, and I'll let you go. Give me your thoughts on it. I mean, I know Clemson's scoring a lot of points, but I think – and I know you guys might see it, but I see Dabo's got something up his sleeve with – he's been trying Kendrick in the pistol lately. And I think he's got something up his sleeve. And I noticed Hunter Renfrow he's been catching a few passes here and there, a few balls, but I see something with Hunter Renfrow when he gets to the playoffs, and I see something with Lynn Dixon, because me personally, Lynn Dixon right now is as good as ETN. Not as big and, powerful, but when he gets in the opening, he hits the crease, he's gone. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I see Lynn Dixon stepping in front of Choice and Feaster, because he runs with a purpose. But anyway, I just want to get your thoughts on that, and go Tigers.
Let me tell you that Emerald did make the playoffs.
Awesome.
Emerald's in the 3A playoffs. They play at undefeated Chapman to open it up, but they did make the playoffs. As far as what you're talking about, all those backs ran extremely hard Saturday. Choice maybe had the run of the year, even though he doesn't get the acclaim or the snaps of the others. Go back and look at the game and look at the breakdown of this one run where he broke several tackles, was knocked off balance, put his hand in the dirt, kept his balance, kept on running. I think that run, more than anything else, impressed Dabo Swinney. I saw Kendrick in there running the option. I don't know if they've got something kind of up their sleeve or not. Why would you want to mess with something that's working so smoothly when you're averaging 60 points per game with the quarterback? Even though he threw a pick Saturday, Lawrence is still on the money and playing with a lot of confidence.
Well, this is laboratory time right now for Dabo Swinney. I think he's realized that. You go and you get some things on film, some things for teams to think about, and that's why you do that with Kendrick. The reason that Lynn J. Dixon doesn't get as many snaps as the other three is the same problem that ETN had last year when they realized that he wasn't as good of a pass protector as the other 2 or 3 backs that they had last year. And because of that, you're seeing more carries and more snaps from ETN, Feaster, and Choice. The fact, though, remains is that Lynn J might be their best runner in open space and their best runner after contact. Well, the one thing that Etienne continues to do is that he continues to just completely be explosive when it comes to being in the open field.
Well, also, he's getting a lot of his players ready to play because, success makes you think, wait a minute, if we do this again, I'm going to do it this way. And let's face it, they won a national championship a lot in that Alabama game because they just wore Alabama out. They beat them by attrition. They stayed on the field, made a few big plays, but with those big plays, they also controlled the football a lot, and they tired out Alabama's defense. I think that they see that going this way this time.
But my worry is that they won't be nearly as battle-tested as they need to be until they face Alabama, because they're not going to see a team that comes even close to what Alabama looks like.
Well, they've had a couple of close ball games. The Texas A&M game, of course, that's a long time ago. The Syracuse game in Lawrence wasn't in that game. So
that's different. Those are competitive games. I didn't say that they weren't being competitive games. They're not going to see a team that looks like Alabama.
Of course not. But I'm saying that they've been in down to the wire situations a couple of times this year. They haven't faced a team like Alabama. Of course not. There's nobody out there like Alabama, apparently. And so they won't get a taste of that until they face Alabama.
If they're fortunate.
Georgia kind of reminded me Saturday that they're not to be forgotten here, and they're just sitting back waiting. Now, Georgia's got to play Auburn this weekend, and that's always a dangerous game, huge rivalry game. They still got to play Georgia Tech, which will create a lot of problems for them. Then they got to play in the SEC championship game. If they get through these remaining games to the SEC championship game unscathed, then that's a game for them to get into the playoffs. They beat Alabama. If Alabama's undefeated at that point, they could still lose and probably get in. Georgia would get in if they beat Alabama. Michigan, Ohio State, they're going to knock each other out, with Michigan being the one right now closest to having its foot in the door. Notre Dame is the one that's just sort of sitting there. They got Florida State. By the way, they went to Blackman at quarterback this past weekend. He threw for over 400 yards. It was for naught. They ran for 24 yards Saturday, Florida State. What a waste of talent. Gosh, would those two running backs be doing something great somewhere else? But anyway, I think Clemson, you're right. I think when they finally do hit a brick wall, how are they going to respond when they do that? All right, let's hit the recruiting before we hit the top of the hour break. Notes to tell you about. One of the guys in to visit Clemson this weekend, 2020 linebacker Antoine Sampa, Woodbridge, Virginia, #1 inside linebacker in the country by rivals. Very strong on Clemson at this point. He'll release a top 8 sometime after the new year. Spent a lot of time talking to Venables and Sweeney. So the Tigers are off to a good start with him. National recruit. 2020 AC Flora safety Donqua Wilson, 6'1", 190, was at Clemson Saturday. Tigers are the first to show interest in him. He's hoping for more down the road. And he said they like him, and they're going to recruit him, is what he said. This is where Denzel Johnson came from, out of the AC Flora program, and he wasn't a highly thought of prospect when the Tigers signed him. So keep an eye on Donqua Wilson. Hanahan, offensive lineman, defensive end Cooper Dawson, went to Army over the weekend. First official. He goes to UCF this coming weekend. Vanderbilt, December 7th. Still involved with Clemson. Tigers have a gray shirt offer on the table for him. His doctors did not clear him when he went to see them last week. He's got the torn ACL he's recovering from. They said give it another 3 to 4 weeks, which he hopes to be able to play in the Shrine Bowl. 2020 receiver Jalen Hyatt of Dutch Fork did not go to Virginia Tech Saturday. He will return to Clemson for the USC game. Athlete Jalon Calhoun of Southside decommitted from Georgia Tech Friday, committed to Duke on Sunday. 2020 offensive lineman Colby Todd of Aner was at Clemson Saturday, one of those big old offensive linemen to keep an eye on. 2021 offensive lineman Quentin Bradford of Norcross, Georgia, was at Clemson Saturday. 6'5" Gerald Drumgoole of Rochester, New York, a USC target, visited Minnesota over the weekend, and the USC women got a commitment from 5'9" guard Zia Cook of Toledo, ranked #7 nationally by ESPN. Top of the hour, we'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We are back. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, on a Monday night from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes. It is time for another award-winning edition of First and 10.
My favorite time of week.
With Zach Willis. He's up first every week to break down what he saw over the weekend. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Hey, Phil, where's my award? You said award-winning.
It's been shipped. It should get to you most any time.
Kind of like a check's in the mail. I'm doing great.
You just keep checking that mailbox, brother.
He's going to pay for a new bench press for your wife.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. I'll be right there.
Keep her in shape. Keep her in shape. All right, so let's begin with South Carolina since it had the better game and a big win for the Gamecocks on the road against Ole Miss. And what did you see from the Gamecock defense in the fourth quarter? Now, I heard you. I'm not talking about the entire game. I mean, I know they gave up like over 600. But in the fourth quarter, they gave up like, what, 19 yards or something?
18 yards.
18. So they really, they did a really nice job. You got to credit those coaches for making adjustments and getting it done in the fourth quarter when it mattered most. What did you see?
That's exactly. I mean, it was about the 11-minute mark, they decided to go to press man coverage and exhibited some confidence in their kids, put the pressure on, and really they didn't have any choice. They did what I don't think they wanted to do it. I heard a couple of comments from Coach Muschamp after the game. They were concerned about doing it. They had no choice because the soft zone was not getting it done. Ole Miss has got a great offense. There's no question they can score on anybody.
Except Alabama.
South Carolina, I'll take that one back.
Yeah. They did score. They did score first. Right now. They did score first, but then they gave up 62 in a row. Mm-hmm. Made them mad.
Yeah, exactly. You hacked them off, and they just went to work on you like they do everybody else. But honestly, I really was impressed with the fact that they were able to make the adjustment like they did. They went back to running the football, and they just kind of got back to their game plan on offense, which I thought the offense played pretty well all day long, exceptionally well at times. And then defensively, when they had to, they shut Ole Miss down. And you have to give credit where credit's due. They did not look great for three quarters, and they found a way to win that game. And that's what winners do. Are they ready to beat Alabama? No. This was a big, big win psychologically for that football team.
Second game in a row, Zach, where we hear Will Muschamp feel like that they kind of treaded water for three quarters, and then all of a sudden they turn to man coverage and they turn into world beaters. I mean, is there something about either their talent, their scheme, or just the way they feel about their man coverage that they're afraid to just go to that the whole game? Like, why does it seem like they have to wait till the fourth quarter when the chips are down to kind of go to this strategy?
Well, I think the main reason they went to it both times was out of desperation. He said he was worried, and I would agree with him, worried about some of the matchups they were going to get. Ole Miss has got one extremely talented wide receiver. And remember, Ole Miss's quarterback got hurt. He hurt his knee. If you run man coverage against a spread zone option team like Ole Miss is, the kids have got their DBs have got their backs turned. There's no secondary run support. And if he breaks it, he's gone. If he doesn't score, he's going to get chunk plays out of that, big yardage plays, because you have no secondary run support. And so his game plan was sound. When the guy banged his knee up, he wasn't as big a run threat, wasn't in there for a lot of the fourth quarter. It limited Ole Miss. They saw that and took advantage of it, and the kids showed up again for the second week in a row against a pretty evenly matched opponent and beat them on their home field.
Well, it seems that Ole Miss did a lot of film study, and I guess you do that every time you have game preparation. But it almost seemed that they knew where to throw the football at the snap. If he saw different coverages, or I should say where guys were positioned, it was almost he had a decision preordained where he was going to throw the football. When they went to man, not only did it seem some hesitation had gone into the quarterback position, but also that helped the pass rush get to the signal caller a few times.
Well, it helped because they were bringing more guys. Playing cover one, which is with a man three over the top, or cover zero, where it's just straight man-to-man, and now they're blitzing 6 or 7 instead of rushing 4. Sometimes one more than Ole Miss could block. They're getting huge pressure, getting pressure up the middle. Again, Kinlaw was incredible in the fourth quarter because he got one-on-one matchups. When you block in 4, you can double-team him. When they bring 6, you can't. And it just worked for them. A lot of good matchups. And, again, the quarterback being injured and not being mobile really changed the game. And South Carolina's to be credited for taking advantage of that in a big way.
Looking at Jake Bentley's last couple of games, 33 of 48 through the air for a little over 500 yards. Efficiency's better. Protecting the football has been better. Is that a direct result of finding a running game the last couple of games and taking some of the offensive pressure off of him maybe?
Absolutely. And I think he's healthier. I think that knee, he can press, he can finish off that knee when he throws now. That's brought the ball down. He's not floating it in there. His back is zipping around like it did when we first saw him come back home from Alabama when he was a young guy, supposed to be a high school senior, but actually playing SEC football. I think a lot of people forget that. Imagine that. He actually did that. And the kid is very talented, but I'm going to tell you what he is more than anything. He's tough. He wants to win as bad as anybody out there, more than most, and he's willing to sacrifice his body to do it. He's calmed down a little bit. He's a little more focused. He's improved. The whole team's improved. And I'm so happy I can say that and have integrity in saying that. But I really thought they really showed what they were made out of these last 2 weeks, and they're a good football team right now. Not great, but they're as good as they can be right now.
First and 10 with Zach Willis joining us here on Sports Talk for his weekly breakdown of South Carolina and Clemson. One more on the Gamecocks, Zach. South Carolina is going to be down not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 players who can play the safety position this upcoming week, and 2 of them are out for the rest of the season. Will Muschamp on his teleconference last night said that they're going to start cross-training some people. Number 1, how hard is that? And number 2, have you ever seen a group as singularly affected as this Gamecock secondary seems to be this year with injuries?
It's definitely one of the worst I've seen. And that's where, you go, golly, those DBs look rough the first 3 quarters. Well, not a whole lot of guys that started the first game are out there. And you have to remember that. It's frustrating for Carolina fans. So that's why they backed off of coverage and tried to not give up the big play. And it's worked for them. Yeah, it's going to make it just tough for Will. It's extremely hard because look at the level you're playing at. You're going into the swamp. You got to play Clemson with backup kids. Now you may be talking about third-team kids against some great receivers and and at least in Clemson's case, a great quarterback. I wouldn't throw that on Florida's QB just yet, but it's going to be tough, very tough, and they're going to have to be conservative in what they call, unless they absolutely have to have it, to press people up like that.
Are you satisfied?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, are you satisfied that the Gamecocks are going to stay committed to the running game? Again, they fell behind Tennessee, stayed with the run. They got ahead early against Ole Miss, then fell behind, but stayed with the run. They didn't really force the passing game. You feel like this is their marriage now to the running game moving forward?
I mean, I can't. I'm not a mind reader, obviously. I'm just so broke down football coach. But I'll tell you this: if it was me, I would. If Joe Morrison, the great Joe Morrison, late great Joe Morrison, what's his quote? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, it ain't pretty right now, but it's still a W. And you go into Ole Miss and beat them. They got a pretty doggone good football team, legitimate SEC win on the road, and you come out of there. Why would you change? And Mark Denson came up huge for them.
What's the phrase? Winning ugly is better than losing pretty?
You better believe it every time.
They actually had good balance. They had 37 rushes against 32 carries.
But
you know what?
Which seemed weird when I saw it. I was like, it seemed weird when I was like, man, they ran it more. It seemed like they passed it more.
But they won a shootout. They won a shootout, Zach, when really few people thought they could go in there and win a shootout. All right, hang on. We'll come back and get your thoughts on Clemson and the national scene and where the Tigers are going to go from here as they head up to Boston College to try to clinch the division. BC with a pretty good running game of its own now. They cannot be discounted when it comes to running the football, but can they do it against Clemson? Back in a moment.
Huh? I have to. Why? What's wrong? Does it? Well, I mean, I do it the same way every week. What do you think I should do?
Why can't you do it? Why can't you do it?
Only because I keep looking at my notes. I'm scared my face is going to get the screen and make it feel neat or something.
Okay. It doesn't sound horrible.
I mean, I can try different things.
It's all right. It's all right.
How's my commentary?
Yeah.
Is it? You like what I should get you out the new
Good job, baby.
I'm going to use the bathroom before we go back on.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Starting to kind of get a forward think on Clemson, because really there wasn't a lot to talk about from their victory over Louisville. I think this is more of, when we bring Zach back in, a look ahead to what BC brings to the table.
I mean, Zach, let's face it, Clemson football is just boring right now. It's just boring. I mean, you know, when you blow everybody out, it's not competitive. Now it's a combination of them being very good and the opposition being very bad for the most part, right? I mean, they're playing a little stretch of bad teams. This Boston College team coming off a win at Lane Stadium, which says something. They've got pretty good offensive team, and they love to run the football, and they love to try to stop the run. Will Clemson go up there, and will they try and force the run on these guys? And when they have faced teams that lined up to stop the run, they've just simply gone back and thrown the football.
I think they're going to try to take whatever the defense is going to give them field. I don't think it's going to be no surprise. They're still going to try to establish a run game, but the basis of the spread offense, the way they run it, is a count tackle box. And if they're crowding the box, like North Carolina State tried to do, that's the last time they played a ranked opponent. You know, they went over the top of them and hit them with big plays to kind of pull away in that ball game. So they're going to respect the defense, Boston College's defense. That's one thing about Dabo and Nick Saban, too, that you need to understand. They respect everybody they play. They treat everybody the same. They don't overlook anybody. And if their kids start to, they'll go off on them.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see out of this is a pretty conservative game plan. But by conservative, I mean don't force anything. Take what they give you, go with a high percentage plays you're playing on the road, and avoid crippling mistakes. Don't beat yourself. That's the key for Clemson this weekend. Don't beat yourself.
This is kind of a multi-part question here, Zach, but, I mean, with this run of play, how difficult is it to not be complacent? And, you know, what are some of the things you've noticed that have, I guess, gone wrong? And you know, it seems like this run of bad teams can kind of give you a false sense of security if you're the Tigers.
Well, that's you have to constantly, and I'm going to go back to Saban and Belichick and these guys that won multiple championships. You do your toughest coaching after blowout wins. You know, that's when you really ride your kids. You create adversity for them. If there's no adversity on Saturday afternoon, you create it Monday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon in practice and make sure that they're putting in the work they need to and they're focused and ready to go. And you absolutely attack any kind of complacency in its infancy. You see anything at all, and I'm sure Dabo's alerting his staff, hey, guys, we can't be satisfied. Remember Syracuse last year. We went up there and got our butts whipped. I can almost hear him say it. Saban a little bit more colorful probably, but they're going to make sure that these kids are on an edge if at all humanly possible. And that's the challenge.
Zach, you've coached at Michigan State, and I think more in the Big Ten, other than maybe some rain, and we're not talking about a monsoon or a hurricane, but weather tends not to be a factor for the most part in the ACC or SEC. But you have Clemson going up to Boston College for a night game. We don't know what the weather will be like there, but how much can weather change the way you call it an offense or even a defense when you're dealing with the elements?
I tell you what, it's calling the game. If it's snowing or if you're getting precipitation, whether it's rain or sleet, wind, that can change your passing game a little bit. It can change the kicking game. It can change, deferring to the second half to get the ball or taking that wind when you can get it in the fourth quarter in your back. So there's multiple things to consider. And in the Big Ten, you're absolutely right. We had an entire meeting about those situations with Mark D'Antonio. We played Penn State for the Big Ten championship. We took extreme measures because it was going to be so cold that weekend. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and came out on the winning edge at things that time, whereas we had lost the Big Ten championship 2 years before because of the cold weather and not feeling like even at Michigan State we were ready for it. So absolutely it can affect it.
Visiting with Zach Willis, 1st and 10 here on Sports Talk with Zach Willis. A few more minutes with Zach. David Shelton coming up to talk about high school football, the playoffs now for the high school league teams coming up this week. I want to go back to a couple things on USC. First of all, breaking news. This could be good news for South Carolina, but the depth chart put out by Florida this afternoon, still shows Felipe Franks as your starting quarterback.
Ooh.
Is that good news for the Gamecocks?
I think so. It depends on which Felipe Franks shows up, but he played last week. He played last weekend against Kentucky several weeks ago early in the year. If he plays like that, Gamecocks going to win that ball game.
Mm-hmm.
They got to force him to make those mistakes now. If he doesn't, it's going to be a tough one because they beat up. But they're going to play well. I predict that. They're going to fight everybody now because he's got them believing. And I will say this to you. Asked the other week, could they get above 25 points? And they proved to us they could way above 25 points in a ball game. Now, against the Florida defense, I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing I want to ask you about, looking back at South Carolina's win at Ole Miss, and, of course, they played a lot of snaps on defense, and T.J. Brunson was huge with 15 tackles, a sack and a half, and 3.5 tackles for loss. But your next 3 leading tacklers were all in the secondary, Nixon, Roderick, and Montag. They combined for 38 tackles.
Bad sign.
Yeah. Isn't that – you don't want your safeties and corners making all those kind of tackles? I mean, that's a sign that they're getting down the field on you?
Absolutely, 100% correct, Phil. It is a very bad sign. And they're capable of better. We know that. We saw that in the fourth quarter, but they're going to have to bring pressure. And they probably need to pick their times and choose their times to go man, disguise it a little bit if these kids can adapt to new positions. It's going to be a challenge with that many injuries, but it's doable.
My thing, I hate to compare Dan Mullen to Trino, but Dan Mullen seemed to think that he could walk in there to that Florida quarterback room and turn Felipe Franks into an all-conference level quarterback, and I think he's finding out very, very quickly that he can't do that. I don't think anybody can do that. Is this kind of, I guess, a worse job than he was promising when it came to this upcoming season and this opening season of his at Florida?
Well, I mean, I've never thought Franks. I found myself wondering how he even got there. And to be brutally honest, it's what you guys have got me in here for. I think that's a huge advantage for South Carolina as long as that kid's on the field. His decision-making is shaky at best. If they can get to him early, they could really have a great day down in Florida. They just got to get pressure on him and harass him like Missouri did, and big things to happen and stay with the run game. And they'll have a shot. And that's all you can ask for in this league is a shot unless you're Alabama.
I'm going back here and looking at – and everybody's hammering this kid. He's 6'6", 203 pounds, give or take. You've got a big arm. The Rivals ranking for him coming out of high school just a couple of years ago, he was the number 3 ranked quarterback, pro-style quarterback in the country, the 57th ranked player overall.
You know who he reminds me of? Reminds me of Blaine Gabbert, guy with all the measurables and all the, talent in the world coming out of high school, and you just can't put it together with the head.
But Zach, the key point with Franks is this, and we always talk about talent, but emotional makeup. It's almost as if when one thing goes wrong with him, the dominoes start to fall, and he makes the next mistake because he's thinking about the first mistake. It's almost like you can't repair that confidence.
Here's the deal. It's like a cornerback or defensive back. They have to have selective amnesia. We struggle with Kirk Cousins, a young Kirk Cousins, developing him at Michigan State of the very same thing. He's beating himself up too much. And South Carolina's got to hope they create some problems early and he gets into that funk. If he doesn't, he can cause you problems. Any of these SEC kids can. They're there because they're great athletes. But the mental makeup right now, this kid coming off of a bad loss, I think he got benched in that game, if I'm not mistaken. It's shaky. So you've got a chance here because of that. Create some havoc early. I look for Muschamp to bring heat early, try to get in his face, mix it up as much as he can.
Well, the atmosphere is going to be just right for South Carolina because the interest level in Gainesville, they only had 86,000 for announced Well, what does that place seat? Does it seat 100? No.
I think
the
it's
Swamp?
88, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was homecoming there. So.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about the fan interest being down and
apathy.
Be a great opportunity for USC to step in there and snatch a win. Hey, Zach, thank you so much, man. Have a great week. Talk to you next week.
You too, guys.
Thank you. Back in just a moment. David Shelton coming up.
They got to get Javon Kinlaw endorsing some sort of weight loss scenario. That's a missed opportunity for him, I think, when he gets to the league. Losing 50 pounds like that in that short amount of time, I think he needs to. We will transition drastically from South Carolina and Clemson to what's going on with the high school. The playoffs are set. for the 2018 Palmetto State playoffs, and we'll talk about him with David Shelton. He's brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With Fave Rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you get all of your favorite things like competitive rates, local agents, and great claim service for all of your auto, home, and life insurance needs. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com.
All right, and David Shelton joins us, High School Sports Report and Charleston Post and Courier. And you mentioned Javon Kinlaw. David watched Javon Kinlaw a lot in high school. Before we talk about the playoffs, I mean, what do you think about the player he has become and how he's changed his body after a couple of years at USC?
Well, I think what it shows is he's matured. He's grown up a lot. He was not a very mature kid in high school. Sat out games, got benched in some games. It was really a concern as to, I know I talked to coaches at Goose Creek during the time he was there, and they were like, we don't know if he's ever going to make it. He just wasn't a mature kid.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up. Obviously, junior college helped him, and he's gotten into shape, and now he may get an opportunity to make money at this game. But I tell you, as a junior and senior in high school, it was touch and go. I can remember clearly some conversations I had, and being at games where he would just be sitting on the sidelines because of something he said or did, and he argued with coaches. And but I tell you what, it kind of just shows you how you don't judge and you don't quit on kids when they're 17 years old, because we're all stupid when we're 17. Hell, I'm stupid and I'm 52. So I think that just goes to show that you stay with them, and and if it doesn't work out for them, if they never mature and they never take it seriously and they never do the things they need to do, then so be it. But he has definitely not only has he changed his body. I mean, he was a big dude in high school, but he got bigger. He ballooned at junior college, but he got it back down, and he's having a good year. He's a serviceable defensive lineman right now with an opportunity to play in the league and make some money.
All right, let's go to the high school playoffs. High school league beginning this week with the playoffs. Skeeza going into round 2. No major upsets in Skeeza last Friday night. Looking over the 5A pairings, David, I'm trying to isolate maybe a potential upset or two. The one I've kind of settled on, possible upset, West Side at Burns. West Side playing much better football here of late. Burns is, of course, they've had a good year, a kind of a bounce-back year for them. Am I barking up a right tree there, or no?
That would not be one I would pick. I don't see Westside beating Burns unless Burns turns the ball over and just plays poorly. I think Westside has done a pretty good job of putting together a really nice season after a slow start, but there were a lot of winnable games on that schedule. That region was not nearly as competitive as what Burns had to go through with the Gaffneys and the Dormans and the Boiling Springs and the Spartanburgs and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at it in Region 2, with Spartanburg winning 3 games, 3-7, that kind of tells you how tough that league is. Because in most leagues they would have probably been 7-3. I mean, it wasn't their best year, but nonetheless, that's a very tough region. So I don't know that Westside's been pushed enough and tested enough to win at Burns. That would be a stretch. And I really I've only glanced at the brackets. I usually don't get real involved until about Wednesday, but I don't see a whole lot. Maybe something tells me Irmo will play Berkeley extremely competitive on Friday. Now having said that, Berkeley might win by 4 touchdowns, but I think that's going to be a competitive. I think Reggie Kennedy will have his team ready to play, and they played in a tougher conference. This conference down here was not very tough for Berkeley. They kind of rolled through people, and if Irmo can get that game into the fourth quarter, who knows? But other than that, I don't see any big time major upsets.
How do you feel about Spartanburg kind of getting almost, I don't want to say a shaft, but I mean, having a great season and then having the reward of getting to face TL Hanna in the playoffs, and even a school like Northwestern, who's kind of had a very nice comeback, and they get to host a playoff game. I don't think that's something that we would have thought would have happened at the beginning of this season.
That's true. And, that again, Spartanburg's not had the year that they're accustomed to, but, it's playoff time, and Hanna's offense is difficult to prepare for, but But Spartanburg can figure it out. I just think the thing with Spartanburg is they're going to have to find a way to score some points because I think Hannah is going to find the end zone on more than one occasion. I think they're going to get up there in the 4-score type area. So Spartanburg's got to score with them. And, Northwestern, again, that they just haven't had a great year. They haven't been consistent. They got it together a little bit, but again, that conference was not real tough. But I could see them winning or losing. I mean, they're just hard to figure out. When you look at their stats and they're from game to game, they just great one night and awful the next.
Now, as far as the Ogre is concerned in 5A and in Dutch Fork, is there a challenger out there for Dutch Fork? And because they have not played a road playoff game, I guess, in 3 or 4 years, David, will they be asked to go on the road to defend their title this time?
Well, if they get to the lower state finals against Berkeley, they'll have to go to Berkeley. But to kind of lead into that, I don't think it matters. I mean, I think they could play on Folly Beach or they could play, in the mountains. I just don't think the field where they play matters. I think they're so good. I don't see a stumbling block, maybe third round Fort Dorchester, but I've seen Fort, and I don't think they could beat Dutch Fort at Dutch Fort. Again, they would have to go to Berkeley if they both survived. And Berkeley sells out their crowd. I mean, they put people in the seats, and it's a good environment. But I know people think I'm just all hung up on Dutch Fort, but I just don't see anybody in the lower state beating them. They'd have to play. They'd have to play very poorly.
We don't believe you, David. We think you're in the tank for Dutch Fort. I'm just kidding.
Hey, let's go to the 4As real quick, and I'm looking over the bracket, looking for what I think are good games. I think that Westwood BHP game could be pretty good. Westwood started off like a house of fire, and then I guess when they got into region, they had some issues, but they've got some players. They're capable. Can they give the Bears a good ball game up there?
I think they could. I mean, they're a very physical team. That will be a very physical game. Belt Honey Path, of course, is known for being physical on defense. And Westwood's got a physical group. Again, they're going to have to play well defensively. Belt Honey Path is pretty good on offense, pretty balanced, can run it and throw it. And their defense doesn't give up a lot. But, that could be an interesting game to watch. If Westwood, again, on the road, you got to get those games into the fourth quarter. You can't fall behind 28-7 and expect to win. You got to keep it close. And if they can do that, they got the athletes that they can make some things happen.
Tell you what, that Wren and Greenville game, they better put some fresh bulbs in the scoreboard for that one.
Yeah, that one's going to have some points. We say that it might be 3-0, but
yeah.
But if it holds true to form, I would say the over-under on points is easily 60, and maybe more. I think both teams are going to go up down the field on each other, and it may be one of those who got the ball last. But there's going to be some offense in that game based on what we've seen over the last 10 weeks. I would say there'll be some scoring in that game.
Corn, my Wildcats 96 are hosting a playoff game.
Oh, is that who you are adopting now this year for the playoffs?
I've told you.
No more
Whitmire or Bishop England.
Whitmire and Bishop England both rejected you.
Chesterfield, do you give him a shot, David? Do you give him a shot?
Who, 96?
Yes.
To win Friday or to
just to win one at a time. We take one at a time. We take it one at a time.
I think they can win Friday. I think they can win a second-round game. I mean, they're a good team. I just think in the double-A ranks, I mean, somebody's got to beat Abbeville. Nobody's done it yet, so we'll see.
It's true.
All right, David, great stuff. We'll pick you back up on Friday, talk about the rest of the classifications as we go into the first Friday night of the playoffs for the high school league. We thank you, sir. Have a great week.
Okay, thank you.
David Shelton, also known as Bib around here, as in Best in Business. Appreciate his contribution. Speaking of Best in the Business, the Panthers right up there.
Pretty good.
We'll hear from the voice coming up.
On 3rd and goal from the 17. Newton backs up, fires end zone, one-handed grab. Are you serious for the touchdown? Greg Olsen, he just went out Odell Beckham style and speared it at the tee in Panthers.
You almost fell victim to that ESPNism there, Mick. You wanted to say, "Are you kidding me?" But you somehow fouled it off and gave it a really professional call there. Congratulations.
Yeah, I hate Are you kidding me? I really do. But really what my brain had sent to my mouth was a little bit more
profane,
inappropriate than that.
I'm glad.
So that's why I had to pause
and
remember that I wish to remain employed for and work on my 401k for a few more seasons.
Understand?
Good decision. What a performance, though. Jumped out quickly on these guys, kind of put them away. And the offense looked like it was really in sync in so many different ways. To me, it looked like a very clean offensive performance from the quarterback through the receivers, through the running backs, everybody in sync.
And we're starting to get a little national love now, Corn. I think that the nation is waking up to and realizing what you just said, that this offense, with all of its weapons, with the combination of a transcendent QB at the height of his powers, with receivers going left and right, and the reverse, a double reverse, the read option, the run pass options, good old fashioned sledgehammer run game with Armah, the fullback, being able to block, Greg Olsen at tight end. What you saw yesterday was a team stressing, and by this I mean the Panther offense, with athletes, with scheme, stressing a defense, and at times Tampa Bay did not know where the football was.
It's weird because I know we kind of joked about this going into the week about you almost would have rather seen Winston in there than Fitzpatrick. And, even though you had some breathing room with the way the Carolina offense performed, Fitzpatrick held his own. How concerned are you of the fact that he was able to at least get some run there?
Yeah, I think the coaches are a little worried about it. This was the number one team in total offense. Tampa Bay, for their struggles, was number one in the NFL in total offense. They were averaging 469 yards a game, and a lot of that through the air. So all credit to them. At halftime, some of the reporters, you know how it is, you got the press box and the popcorn and everybody's talking, and tongues were wagging. Should the Bucs put Winston in? And I said, no. I mean, the problems Tampa Bay is having at halftime, when it was 21-point Panther lead, have nothing really to do with quarterback play. They had, it wasn't Ryan Fitzpatrick's fault that the Panthers put 35 points up in 2 quarters on the Bucs.
You look at his career, and nobody, Mick, has argued that Norv Turner has not been a creative offensive coordinator. They always go back to his checkered past as a head coach. And I was one of the ones that was saying, I thought, Norv Turner was a solid hire. He's comfortable in his own skin. He's not in his mid-60s. This may be just what the Panthers need. And I know McCaffrey is glad he's in the booth.
I agree. To see him call plays, every once in a while, and maybe I'm overstating it, but I'm 60 years old. So I never got to see Ted Williams swing a baseball bat, or see Louis Armstrong play the trumpet in person, or Buddy Rich play the drums, or, Bobby Fischer was rising to chess. The chess boom caught me in my young adulthood. And, John McEnroe playing tennis, a tennis boom.
List every virtuoso ever.
Right. Watching Norv Turner, it makes me think this guy is a grandmaster. He is a cut above at his ability to teach, communicate, to listen, to take these chess pieces and put them together in a cohesive way. And it changes week to week. That's the fun part of it.
Hey, what was it like to hit 60? Because I'm about 4 or 5 years off from that. What was that feeling like when you crossed maybe the end zone? That's kind of the end zone line, in life. Now you're in the end zone. Maybe you're looking for a cell phone underneath the padding. What was that like?
Well, just all I have to do is glance in the mirror and see how, Walking Tall Part 2, Buford Tusser, Clint Eastwood I look, and it makes my entire life a joyous Noel. But wasn't that an out of character, stupid, ill-timed touchdown celebration, that I was borderline praying that the Rams would return that kickoff back for a tuggy.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at the sideline, and, you know, the coaching staff, they kind of, I'm sure they were upset, but they were also maybe a little bit understanding. It seemed like they didn't blow up as he continued his tribute to Joe Horn for some reason.
It makes me wonder if JC's got a cell phone. Will he be?
You know, Joe Horn's son plays for the Gamecocks, JC Horn.
Is that right? Wow.
He's a freshman corner, and
Does it
he's doing extremely well.
Mick?
Cool. Joe Horn. Yeah, what a great old name that is. But, yeah, Sean Payton looked to me like he wanted to twist Thomas's head off if he could.
Now, Pittsburgh, got to go up there Thursday. Quick turnaround. I don't guess anybody in the NFL really likes these Thursday games except for the TV crews and the money that the people are making both ways. But they got to do it, and I'm sure the players are, you know, quickly trying to get their minds fixed on the Steelers.
It was crazy, Corn. There was a walkthrough in the stadium, not on the practice fields, but the Panthers heated up the stadium today, turned the lights on late in the afternoon, the gloaming, the rain, the mist, and to see these players out there going through a walkthrough after they had just gotten done playing, less than 24 hours after they came off the field playing a physical game. What these guys sacrifice is incredible, but they've got to do it. Like you said, you got to be ready to go. I'm sure the home team wins a lot of these Thursday night games because they don't have to turn the travel nut. And Pittsburgh's good, so it's going to be quite a test.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see more than the average observer does because of your position with the team, but, you know, they don't hit really much during the season in practice anyway, but they even dial it back that much more for these short weeks. I mean, I'd be surprised if they put on pads this week.
Me too. I watched, there's no need to really. I mean, I watched Ryan Khalil walk from the training room, the treatment room, into his locker today, and he looked like he was walking like Fred Sanford. And
it's a bit of an old reference. I'm kidding.
Well, y'all went Joe Horn, so I figured I could go 70s TV. But, you know, just to see this proud athlete who's not old, his chronological age is young, but he was struggling.
A better character to use would have been Chester on Gunsmoke if you really want to.
Wow. Now you
go deep in the annals.
You're going 60
I'm
years
only
ago.
31.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
You remember Chester of Gunsmoke, don't you, Mick?
I remember Festus.
There's Festus, but there was Chester,
There's
too.
Chester Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chester was the one who had the bad limp, right?
Dennis Weaver, who became McLeod years later.
Yeah. Hey, what you got on your show tonight?
McLeod, that's great stuff. I love it.
That we've completely alienated the 25.
There you go.
I know. The millennial brain is all stirred up right now, but what are these old people talking about? We got a good show, very good show. We got James Bradbury. We got Ron Rivera, who's waiting in the studio for the show to start. He'll be with us live, and then we got Marty Herney as well to break it all down.
Hey, I was meant to ask you this too. Coach Rivera, watching some of the highlight clips that I saw on Sunday afternoon, does he actually drink a Pepsi on the sideline during the game? I've seen that some highlight clips.
Yeah, he's been known to pop one open down there from time to time.
One of these times we gotta get you should just hand the phone to Ron just so we can talk to him for a couple minutes.
There's a highlight clip of a field goal by the opponents against the Panthers clanging off the upright, and they cut over to Ron Rivera and he's drinking a Pepsi. You've seen that highlight clip?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's good theater.
Mick, have a good trip to the Steel City.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank y'all.
See ya. You've seen the commercial.
Still not like the late Joe Morrison lighting up a Marlboro on the sideline.
That wasn't a commercial. That was a real deal.
That's not the same thing.
No, I know.
All right, Talking Tuesday tomorrow. The coaches will have plenty to say. You'll be up with the Tigers as they're getting ready for Boston College.
And I'll be at Wofford tomorrow night.
Wofford tomorrow night for hoops. I'll be over at USC for football and hoops. So we'll have all that for you. Brian, thank you, sir. Great job. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Sports Talk.